Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, here with my co-host, Kelly Sarlo, and we are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for being here with us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hi.
Hi.
I love that you go back and forth and let me say hi first. Thank you.
I know I like to cause you any extra stress and anxiety that I can. And so if you don't know who's going to say hi first, that's just one more win I get for my day.
You're a menace. I love it. I do enjoy that you pick on me this much, just in case anyone's like, whoa. So speaking of good laughs, we're in a step challenge right now. And I know this is going to air a little bit later, but we'll run them a couple times throughout the year. I am working really hard right now at not being a menace in this step challenge, because the last time we did one together, I lost my mind and I almost lost friends.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I've definitely noticed that it pushes people way past their norm.
It's fantastic, and I'm all for like the way that it pushes people, and you've structured it in such a cool way that I was not anticipating when we started brainstorming it, where you get paired up with one person for the week, but then you and your partner also get paired against another team, which is super cool, and you can earn points in different ways. So like you're competing against yourself, you're competing with another person that you feel like responsible to, show up for, and then also these little competitions in between. It's so fun.
It is fun. Yeah, it's gonna push everybody outside their comfort zone. It brings out the best and the worst in some.
I know. And then on top of that, you and I are both experiencing that our mothers are a part of it, which is a different challenge all on its own.
Oh
If
yeah.
anyone knows dealing with their mothers learning technology.
Yeah, it requires a few extra one-on-one tech support phone calls.
Yes, it does. Yeah. But I'm having lots of fun and I love that you're running it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. If anybody wants to get involved with their next one, reach out.
Yeah, it's a really fun community to be a part of. There's some smack talk going on. I saw in some of the chats too, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's my game. If anybody knows me, they know I like that. So I try to stir the pot wherever I can.
That's awesome.
I laugh when you called me a menace at the beginning. My last name's Harriman, for those of you who don't know, and some of my buddies call me the hairist.
That's awesome.
Because of this kind of thing.
Fantastic. I love it. Oh, I'll
All
have to
right,
adopt that.
what do you got for a topic today?
Well, okay, so I wanted to talk, we're about a third of the way through the year, which is kind of a big deal for a lot of people. And I think also a really great time to do a little reality check for some people, to ask the question, to reflect on, are you where you thought you were going to be? And if you're not where you thought you were going to be partway through your year, what can we do to help ourselves and shift our mindset a little bit?
Love it.
Yeah, so I mean, I can let you start. I've got quite a few things that I want to go through, just so that people feel empowered with actions, and some concepts to put in their back pocket. But this can be a fun back and forth conversation too.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just gonna say one thing and then I'll let you go because I want to see where you want to take it. But I think this is fun to do at all different times. Like you could be like, okay, let's look at the last 5 years of my life. What did I accomplish? What would I like the next 5 years to look like?
Yeah,
Let's look at the last week of my life. What did I accomplish? What would I like the next week to look like? So like this is as good a time as any to do this, but you don't have to limit it to these big landmarks. Like we can always look back and then reflect forward. And we talk about this in Breaking 90. If we own our past, we can control our future. If we neglect to own our past and play the like, oh, poor me card, it's really freaking hard to control your future, right? There's not ever going to be 100% of things in our control, ever, ever, ever. But don't worry about that shit. The stuff you can't control, let it go. The stuff you can control, own it. Yeah, I did sit on my ass a little bit too much. I did make some poor nutrition choices. I didn't move quite as much as I would have liked to or commit to that exercise plan I was going to. I own that. I know I did. And so now I can control where I want to go from here because I'm not pretending that that wasn't on me at all.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that I hear, especially in my field of psychology, because as many people know by now, I'm the mindset coach, is oh, the past is the past. And it's like they don't want to look back; they just want to look forward. And I understand, we want to keep our sights set on the future and whatnot, and what we can do. But if you're not reflecting on the past, you're doomed to repeat it, right? Because we are creatures of habit. We are doing it consciously or subconsciously. So we do need to reflect and take stock of where we've been, what we've done or not done, so that we can figure out how to control that future in the best way possible.
It's also like it's our best way of learning. You can read books, you can take courses, you can hire a coach. None of those things are a perfect reflection of you.
Yeah,
Your past is you. You can learn from how you respond, how you felt, how you handled a certain situation, and you can grow out of that.
absolutely. And hopefully that's what people are wanting to do through life in general.
Yeah, and that's why there's not a one size fits all approach to health and fitness
Yeah.
because it looks a little bit different from person to person. And if you ever work with us, we're going to encourage you to explore that for you. What foods make sense for you? What movement plan makes sense for you? What routine makes sense for you? It looks a little bit different from person to person. That's why I can't ever put together something cookie cutter and say this will work for all of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So I mean, the first question really is to ask people or have them ask themselves, am I where I want to be or where I thought I was going to be at this point in the year? Right. So what that really is going to hopefully bring to our attention is, did I set goals? Did I even have an idea or clarity of where I wanted to head to? Because I think some people are going to be able to very easily answer this, yes or no, one way or the other. Some people are going to sit there and go, I don't know, it's April. I'm not really sure. Like, where was I supposed to be? And so, hopefully, what you can understand at that point is I either did have the clarity and I was working towards something consciously, or we've talked about this quite a bit, kind of crossed my fingers, hope and a prayer that things were going to go well, but I didn't really define what that was going to be. So, I don't actually know if I got where I wanted to be.
What you're saying here is so important because I think a lot of people do this when you ask yourself to reflect back on the past period of time and say, "Am I where I wanted to be?" It's like, no, I would have loved to have been shredded by now. I would have loved to have been a millionaire by now. And it's like, well, did you actually map out a plan to that? And was it a reality? Was it a possible goal? Was it things that you could have put into play and worked towards? Or are you just setting yourself up to be disappointed with your past because you didn't achieve something impossible or something it's not impossible, obviously it's possible, but something that wasn't even close to being on your radar.
Yeah, I love that. So the self-reflection is the first step, right? And it's never too late to be able to identify where it is you want to be headed. And I mean, the next step is a very natural, I'll say obvious one, which is setting those goals then. So if you have a clear picture of what you want to look like, feel like, be engaging in on a day-to-day or weekly basis, you've got that end result in mind. We've got to kind of step backwards now and decide what you want those action steps to look like so we can start setting action based goals in order to get ourselves there in the next part of the year, right? Uh,
Love it.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I like this because you can work backwards or forwards here. You can work backwards and say this is how I could have achieved this, this, and this, and then you can put it into play going forward. You can you can say what your goal is and then build the steps back to where you are, or you can start where you are, build the steps forward, and see where that's gonna take you. But either way, you have to do it. You should probably do it from both sides to see if they can meet in the middle, or if there's a massive gap and you're not setting a realistic timeline on this goal.
I love that. That's a great point.
Mm.
Um, the next thing that I wanted to mention too is the idea of continuous learning, right? So if we're talking about defining where it is we want to get to, what habits we want to be building in, and now we've got these goals and this action plan to get to where we want to be. Now let's draw in resources, right? So if that's hiring a coach, if that is reaching out to someone for accountability, how can you bring in continuous learning about what you are trying to implement, about what you are trying to achieve? For the sake of inspiration, for the sake of motivation, for the sake of just knowledge and learning and growing yourself in general as a person. I think some people just think it's a grind and it's an action that they've got to implement. But the learning process of, or the learning part of things really enriches life, right?
So something just quick to piggyback off of that,
Sure.
because I hear it all the time. I want to try this on my own before I hire a coach, before I try a program, whatever. I'm okay with you trying it on your own. I'm not telling you not to try it on your own, but set some boundaries for yourself for when you're gonna be like, okay, enough is enough.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we don't succeed on our own. It's the reason that there are coaches out there. It's the reason that there are programs out there, because a lot of people benefit from guidance, accountability, and support. So if you're like, I'm gonna try this on my own, don't get 6 months down the road and be like, yeah, that didn't work. Right? Be like, cool, I'm gonna try this on my own. Here's the action steps I'm gonna take. If a couple weeks from now or a month from now I haven't made checkpoint number one, I'm going to reach out and at least have a conversation with somebody, or I'm going to figure out what needs to change. I'm not just going to repeat something that isn't working until I'm really, really discouraged with the fact that I've regressed even further or moved even further from my goal.
Yeah, I love that. So like mini deadlines in between. I think that's fantastic. Benchmarks, right? And when I say continuous learning, and I'm going to pair it with what you're talking about, even if someone says, I want to try this on my own for a month, and this is the benchmark I want to see by the end of that month, you can still have continuous learning in that you decide you're going to include a weekly podcast as a resource for
Oh
continuous
yeah,
learning that is going to continue to educate you about the steps that you're taking, right? Uh,
absolutely.
Online course, YouTube, right? There, we have so many things at our disposal for resources. You just have to decide how you like learning and draw from that particular area.
How you like learning and how you actually learn though aren't always the same.
True.
Like like I know so many people that are like, I love listening to podcasts. I listen to 20 podcasts a week. And it's like, cool. Are you actually applying any of the things you got from them, or do you just like listening to them?
Right. Yeah, I
Right?
love that.
Like that's a whole different topic, but it's true. Like information isn't always the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one.
Yep.
I'm going to say network. And even just to kind of broaden things out here, like build a community, right? So it doesn't have to be a network in the sense that it's another professional that's going to get you to where you want to go. You can network with people that are going to help hold you accountable. It's drawing in and building up that circle so that you are having conversations about your goals. You're debriefing about how things are going. You have people to celebrate with, right? The networking and building your social circle or your social support is so important to get to where you want to go, whether you guys are applying this directly to your health and fitness stuff, whether you're listening to this and saying, hey, this applies to my career as well, or even just the way that you want to cultivate your interpersonal relationships or strengthen your family ties, right? That networking or that social circle for support is so important.
Yeah, I actually don't know if I have anything to add here. The people around you can lift you up, they can bring you down, make sure that they're the right people for what you are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this one might sound a little bit corny, but I'm going to throw it in here because I think it's good to talk about obvious things. The idea of embracing change, right? I think a lot of us are very change averse. Our bodies typically want to stay the same. Like we want to be comfortable, we want to feel safe. But when you're setting out new goals or you have an idea of where you want to get to, it's different than where you are today. So we do have to embrace this idea that things need to change. We are going to change in the process. Our identity is going to adapt and grow and change as well. And I think that's something that we really need to give a little bit more thought to, because if not, we can become very averse to the like our own actions that we've chosen to implement in the process and not understand how we become our own block.
And on top of that, realize that change is uncomfortable. So you have to prepare for discomfort and be okay with discomfort.
Yeah.
You're not going to change by staying comfortable. And that can like physically, mentally, emotionally, like there's a level of discomfort that has to occur to create change. Like Kelly mentioned earlier, your body doesn't want to change. So if we're talking about body composition, it wants to stay the same. Where you are now is where your body's comfortable. You're eating a similar amount of calories and you're moving a certain amount each day. Your body likes that. That's its norm. If we want to increase or decrease our weight, we have to push outside of what the body's comfortable with. The body might resist that at first. It might be like, "What the hell are you doing? I like it here." Sooner or later, it's going to establish a new norm and be like, "Okay, okay, I'm going to pause here. This is my new norm. I don't want to change." This applies to all areas of our life. You 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 as a human don't want to change, but we in our heads, in our minds, in our goals do want to change. We have to battle that. We have to create resistance and discomfort to accomplish that.
Yeah, I love that you've spelled that out for people. One of the examples, I think we've talked about this on the show together, is that a friend and I get up 3 days a week to go to the gym before the day starts. And that involves for me waking up at 6:30 in the morning. I don't wake up like sunshine, okay? I don't wake up raring to go where my body feels fantastic and I'm excited for the thing I'm about to do. There is discomfort for probably the first 5 minutes. My body feels sleepy. It's woken up to an alarm. I don't feel like I've got the energy to be in the gym at that moment. But I do have to accept that there's going to be a little bit of discomfort before the body gets moving, it gets into the routine, and I'm happy I've done what I've done, right? Same way when you're talking about, we implement fasting quite a bit in our programs. When someone says, "Okay, I'm going to, switch my nutritional window to be noon till 8 p.m." There's discomfort in the morning where your stomach's going, "Hey, what are we doing?"
Yeah.
Right? And if all we do is go, "Oh, this little moment doesn't feel great or doesn't feel familiar," and we think it's not meant to be or it can't be right for me, we resist that change right in that moment and decide, nope, I'm not going to explore this feeling of discomfort. I'm not going to learn about it. I'm just going to go back to the way things were. And it's not that something didn't work out for you or couldn't have been good for you. It's that we haven't embraced the idea of change.
And it takes time to adjust to that. So from I'm going to give two examples here, but from a fasting standpoint, like if you only fast during the week, then it's going to take your body a hell of a long time to get used to this. I barely ever eat in the mornings, and I always almost always work out in the mornings. If you just start doing that, your workouts are going to feel like shit. But over time, like I don't notice anymore. That's what I do. So my body's used to that. I perform well, and that's normal. Whereas the second example is like you're waking up at 6:30 in the morning 3 times a week to go to the gym. If you normally wake up at like 9 a.m., there's always going to be resistance there. You're never going to get used to it. It's never going to feel good to wake up at 6:30. But if you get up at 6:30 every single day or 7, like relatively close to that, and some days you go to the gym, there's way less resistance, right? And so we have to be aware of that when we're throwing change at our body. We have to make it as easy as possible for our body to adapt and create its new norm. We talk about this with sleep a lot. If some days you go to bed at 2 in the morning, some days you go to bed at 10 at night, like your body can't adjust to this. Obviously there's the one-offs. The one-offs are going to happen. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking on a routine basis. Your bedtime and wake up time, the closer they are day after day after day after day, the better your body adjusts, the better quality of sleep you get, the better recovery you get, the better you perform. It all goes hand in hand. So that's just a sleep example, but give your body, your mind the best possible opportunity to adapt to the change you're asking it to change.
Yeah, I love that. Can I go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, celebrate progress. A lot of people forget this. And I will also say a lot of people undermine their progress. And we see this a lot every single Wednesday in our online community on Facebook, as well as our members community. we ask people to celebrate their wins, right? We want to hear what people are proud to have accomplished. And inevitably, someone will say, well, I know it's not a big deal, but I did this today. And it's like, well, hang on. Why are we qualifying the largeness or the smallness of a win? Why, like, one of the things that we need to be able to do is acknowledge the change, however big or small, and be able to say, I'm proud of this incremental progress that I am making, right? Because celebration also fosters momentum.
Can you imagine if you had a small win every single week for 52 weeks, what that would create,
Yeah.
right?
And I think, you can still have those small wins for 52 weeks, but if they go unacknowledged the entire year, you're probably more likely to not get to the end of the year and accomplish the thing that you want to do because you've kept it quiet, you've isolated your journey.
Totally.
It's lonely, it's not as fun, right? And so there's more of the like, well, I don't know, it doesn't feel like such a big deal, so maybe I'll just give up. Maybe it doesn't make a big difference. Versus you celebrate that thing once a week and you've got the same people, whether it's a coach, the community, your friends and family being like, oh my God, 4 weeks ago, you couldn't have said that. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, 6 weeks ago, like this would have been a completely different situation or conversation. That's momentum every single week. And when you finally achieve that big thing, you don't just have one celebration that lasts for a fleeting moment, you had 52 and a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine that if every week you wrote down your biggest and your biggest accomplishment, what you're most proud of, and at the end of the year, you look back at those 52 things, you're gonna be like, "Holy shit, I did a lot this year. I
Yeah.
accomplished a lot this year."
Yes. Yeah, and that's what we want people to be able to see. And I
Yeah.
mean, all of the things that we're talking about is part of shifting a mindset, right? And I want to say this not as a step all on its own, but each one of these things is going to work to shift your mindset. And I think for a lot of people, if you're asking the question, am I where I thought I was going to be? Am I where I want to be partway through my year? Some of us will sit there and go, okay, I need to shift my mindset. That's a lofty, abstract concept. What we've been talking about up until this point are the action steps that are actually going to shift your mindset, right? It's the implementation that's actually going to shift things. Good?
Yep.
Okay, cool. One of the things that we've been talking about, not outright, but I'll just kind of spell it out here, is also time management. We talk
Mm.
about embracing change, we talk about implementing an action plan. That all involves figuring out how to manage your time because you want to create change, you want to do something different. We got to be able to look at that schedule and figure out our priorities and figure out where we're going to drop in those times that we're going to actually spend contributing to our goals.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Like do this daily on a small scale. You don't need to like remap out your entire year and your entire goal every day, but reflect on a portion of it every day. Like we tell our members this all the time. Always be looking a month ahead for any obstacles. Always be looking a week ahead for any small obstacles. And always be looking the day ahead to identify where we give our clients points for nutrition, where you want to use the majority of your points. Like if we do this well, we don't get caught leaving things up to chance.
Yeah. Yeah, and similar, our workouts. If we're saying we want to work out, you know, 4 days a week, let's say, and let's bring hope back into the mix here. It's Sunday and you're saying, I hope I get 4 workouts in this week. Well, if you sat down with your agenda or your planner or your family calendar and you wrote down 6:30 on Wednesdays, 7 a.m. on Thursdays, and you actually scheduled or slotted them into the calendar itself, you've got an appointment. This is no longer a hopeful situation, you have a plan.
Well, and like if you always work out, say Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get my 4 easy, but then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we're going away for the weekend. Like you can't forget that you were going away for the weekend. You need if you look a month ahead, you're planning for that. You look a week ahead, yep, I have to shift that to Monday and Wednesday this week. You look the day ahead, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to go in the afternoon today. Like don't leave these things up to chance, guys. You're not gonna win leaving it up to chance. The casino's gonna win.
I love that. I will bring in self-care because if we are talking about not being where we wanted to be or hoped to be at this point in the year, that likely means that we have fallen off our own priority list, which means we are probably not accessing or implementing self-care because we've put other people or other people's goals ahead of our own, right? So this idea of self-care, I'm not talking about making sure that you've got time to get your nails done or have, your hair done or things like that. We're talking about these other steps like time management, which is an act of self-care, right? Making sure that you are on your own priority list is self-care. Good?
Yeah, and I don't know if this goes best in this category, but this is where I'm putting it. We often look in like a calendar year for this, right? So am I where I wanted to be by this time of year? No. That doesn't mean that you've messed up. You shouldn't be punishing yourself for this. Like, would you still be happy if you got where you wanted to go by April of next year as opposed to January of next year? Yeah, like you're not on a definite timeline. You can decide where the goal goes and where the time spans and what you want that to look like. So don't if you aren't where you want to be, like don't feel bad that 4 months have been wasted. They're not wasted, but just keep moving forward. The end goal might take a little bit longer, but chances are you're going to get there and you're going to extend what you want to achieve anyways.
Yeah. I just had this conversation with my little guy last night. He had a meltdown and he was really upset that he wasn't allowed to finish his ice cream, for example. And I just said, well, you lashed out and you didn't speak very nicely. So a natural consequence was the treat went away and we went straight to bedtime. That's a fair consequence for how you chose to behave. At any point in this day, today, you can choose something different. You can choose a different behavior. And I asked him, "Does that make sense?" And he was like, "Yeah." It's the same conversation I have with adults when they're doing exactly what you talked about. I'm not where I want to be. I haven't taken the actions that I want to take. Yes, it's April. I don't have to wait until January 1st of next year. I can choose a different behavior anytime today, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the same concept. And it's so easy to talk to kids about this and give them a healthy way of looking at something. And yet we'll put our own goals off.
Did you see the post I shared to Instagram the other day from Mike Dola where he's like, I I missed my turn off to get home today in New York, so instead of taking the next turn off, I just drove all the way to Florida. Like it's the exact same thing, right? Like
That's
okay,
awesome.
like now let's start making change. Ah, screw it. I'm going
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep driving for hours and
that's too funny.
yeah.
Every you have a different, pardon me, you have a choice in every moment if you want to behave differently than what you did previously. And that's part of, what we're talking about, controlling your future.
Love it.
The other thing I'll say too is seek feedback. And I want people to take this with a grain of salt because the first thing that you need to make sure of is that you're seeking feedback from good, healthy people, right? So if you're turning to your partner and saying, like, hey, I'm not where I wanted to be, can you give me feedback on that? And they weren't on board with your goals to begin with, they weren't supportive of the changes that you were trying to make, you're not going to get the feedback that you need or you want, which aren't always the same thing. You want to be seeking it from the right people who are going to offer you that accountability, guidance, and support in your goals, where they can say to you, I see you're not where you want to be. I remember you telling me that you wanted to work out 4 times a week, and I don't see you making the time to actually get to the gym. That's the feedback. So how do you plan, to start making or slotting that time in? Let's talk as a family, right? That's good feedback.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people have go-to humans, go-to individuals who we already know aren't really in our corner. And the feedback becomes not constructive, it becomes destructive,
Yeah.
we get hard on ourselves. So we really need to be honest and smart about who we're seeking feedback from.
Or on the flip side, you're trying to get feedback from somebody who's your support and not your accountability, right? Like which we talk about a lot. Somebody who's gonna be like, ah, it's okay, you did your best. Like it's okay, you've been doing great. Like that's your support person. They're there to comfort you. They're not there to help you make change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really cool. And I hope it's okay to bring up this example. I remember sitting around the table with you and Dev, your wife, where she was frustrated with the podcast that she was doing. And we kind of looked at each other and you're like, you need to be accountability. I'm playing support right now. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's a really good distinction to make because we need those support people, right? The ones who are going to validate our emotions and then the accountability person who's going to kick our ass, right?
Totally.
Yeah, so knowing what role that person does play, what role you've asked them to play, and allowing it to happen is really important.
In that situation too, just because somebody holds you accountable in one part of your life doesn't mean they're your accountability for all parts of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then the other thing I'll say too, again, it kind of sounds corny, but I'm gonna lay it out here anyway. Staying positive. And that doesn't just mean like, okay, well, everything will be all right. I mean the self-talk, right? When you're saying, okay, I'm not where I want to be, not giving into that inner critic who's just going to beat you up and say things that are very mean, call you a failure, maybe name calling. We want to be able to stay positive about the things that we can control. We want to stay focused on, okay, what did I do to contribute to my goals instead of listing all the ways that you might have shit the bed.
Self-talk is not corny at all. I'm gonna give a quick example here. Mark Wahlberg recently posted something, and like I don't know if you guys follow him, but he's like in his 50s and completely shredded. Like he's a savage. He runs a very successful business. He's a celebrity. He's making movies. He's like he's doing it. Now he's got the money to help with that, the support to help with that. So don't get me wrong. He has other advantages, but he talks in this video about like some of his injuries and nagging problems that stop him from performing optimally. And he has the self-talk and the mental strength to be like, I'm gonna push through. I'm gonna do it anyways. When we reverse that, and you're like, I can't do this. I won't do this. This hurts. I'm gonna not do this. Those problems start to grow. Whether actually grow or mentally grow, they start to grow and hold us back more and more and more. So like there's something massive to be said with self-talk and with not letting real life problems grow into something that isn't real or get worse because of the way that we're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's so much more to say about self-talk in the sense that if you, which we all are our own worst critic, if you are allowing your self-talk to spiral into like things like verbal abuse, you are far more likely to be engaging in interpersonal relationships that treat you similar to how you talk to yourself. Because statistics will actually show we don't stay in relationships that treat us worse than we treat ourselves, right? So if you are in a practice of negative self-talk, that is the type of relationship that you're going to attract all around you.
Mm.
When you're shifting that positive self talk, you're less likely to accept that from another human being, whether it's a coach, a coworker, your children, etc. Right? So that's again fostering really positive well-being if you are on top of your self-talk.
Love it.
Cool. That's what I wanted to offer people today. I hope it empowers them to know different steps that they can take, what's within their control, so that they feel really good about where they're headed in the next part of the year.
Great. You have a closing tip today?
Yeah, completely unrelated to what we've talked about.
It's okay.
I wanted to remind people how important touch is to thrive. A lot of us are touch deprived in our lives because of our life circumstances. Maybe we are not necessarily in intimate relationships or don't know how to foster intimacy within our relationships. But touch is really important for human beings to feel connection. So that can be a hug, that can be a hand on the back, that can be a handshake, honestly. So, in ways that you are comfortable opening up the possibility of touch, just going to encourage people to ask for it in their relationships where it's safe to do so and appropriate to do so, so that we can build up more of our immunity, because it does have an effect on our immune systems and our mental well-being. So don't underestimate the power of touch.
Don't be upset when I throw you in a snowbank.
Okay, sounds good. Love it.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for listening. Hope you got some valuable takeaways. Wherever you are listening, please comment, rate it, leave us a review, reach out and ask us any questions you have. We're always here for you guys. We're always here to chat and take these conversations further. And we just really appreciate you being here with us on this journey.